Hello, everybody. This is Mr. Storm, and this week we are going to focus on how to do mathematical operations in our programs. I know, you don't want to learn how to do math. Well, guess what? This is going to be really easy because the program will do the math for us, which is going to be fantastic. All right, so I'm going to make sure I am creating a console application, and I will name this application Operations Teacher Edition. I'm going to make sure I put it in my programming folder. So I'll go to my desktop and my computer programming folder, put it in there, and select that folder. All right, now it's good to go. I'm going to click OK. It's going to build my new application. All right, good. So in the last video, we learned how to create variables. And variables are really helpful, right? Because we can store information in our variables. Well, we can also use those variables to add numbers together, subtract, multiply, and do all that stuff. So what I'm going to do here is I'm actually going to create a few new variables. I'm going to do add number 1. I'm going to set that equal to, I don't know, 39. And int add number 2, I'm going to set that equal to 23. Okay, now what I can do is I can create a new variable called sum, int sum, and instead of telling that specifically what to be, I can say sum is going to be add number 1 plus add number 2, right? And this is going to be, this is all addition. So then I want to see what the value of number 1 plus number 2 is. So that's easy. Console dot write line, and I want to write the sum. Oh, I spelled console wrong. Okay, and I want to write the sum to my screen. So I'm actually going to make wait console dot read line. There we go. Now let's check to see what 39 plus 23 is. Build, waiting for it to build. Taking forever, I'm just adding two numbers together. All right, so, oh, look. 39 plus 23 is actually 62. Great. We can make that as crazy as we want. We can say, I want to add 9,568 to 215,874 and see what that means, or see what that is. So let's do that. And that is 225,442. Perfect. Because computers are really good at math, we can actually just make the computer do all of our math for us if we want. So that's just addition, though. Let's get into some new, more complicated stuff, such as subtraction. Well, subtraction is actually just as easy as addition. Sub number 1 is going to be equal to, I don't know, 54. Oh, I need my semicolon. Int sub number 2, let's say that's equal to, I don't know, 12. And let's say int difference, the difference between these numbers. Let's say difference is sub number 1 minus sub number 2. And the operator for subtraction is this minus, this hyphen here. And console dot write line. And we'll say it's going to be the difference. I want to write the difference to my screen. Okay, and let's check to see what that number is. 42. Okay, great. And again, we can change those numbers to make them whatever we want. All right, now let's do multiplication. Now with this, I'm actually going to show you a quick trick. So let's do, instead of creating variables for all of this, let's actually skip the first two lines and say int product, because the value of two multiplied numbers is called the product. Let's say the product, and we'll actually just pick numbers out of the blue. Let's say 57 And the operator for multiplication is times 57 times 89. And then console.writeLine product. Okay, so we've just saved ourselves some time because we don't need to create these variables because we're just telling it what the numbers are anyway. So let's see what that is. Let's see what the product of 57 times 89 is. Oh, 5,073. Perfect. All right, let's do division now because division's the next thing, right? Division, let's say division. And you know what? When we divide numbers, there's a possibility that we could get a remainder, right? We can get a decimal number. So think about it. Do we want to use an integer? Well, let's review. Integers are for whole numbers, numbers without decimals. So that probably wouldn't work here. I mean, it would work, but we would only get the whole number. We wouldn't get the remainder, which is kind of what we want. We want the whole thing. So in order to get the decimal number, we want to actually use a float variable. Float. And the quotient, because the quotient is the product of two different numbers being divided, or a number being divided by another number. So let's say the quotient is, or let's say the operation is going to be 67, and we're going to use this forward slash for divided by 4. And we're going to console.writeLine, and let's say quotient. Okay, and let's see what that is. So the fourth number should be our divided number. 16. Okay, let's give it one that actually has, oh, that shouldn't be, let's say 9 divided by 4. Let's see what the, oh, it's only giving me the decimal. That's weird. It's not giving me the, here's the reason why. With division, we actually don't get the remainder at all. We might want to try this as a double. Let's try a double and see if that works. Nope, still doesn't. Well, let's say I want to find out what the remainder is. Okay, well, we can actually still make this an int then. What we want to do with the remainder is we want to use an operation called modulus. Modulus. Modulus will divide two numbers and just tell me what the remainder is. It will ignore the whole number and just give me the remainder. Now, modulus is very useful for figuring out if a number is even or odd. That's mainly what I use it for. And I'll show you how to do that. So int, and we'll say modulus of this number. And let's say, we want to figure out if 367 is even or odd. So we're going to do modulus, which is a percent sign, modulus 2. If you divide something by 2, if it returns with a remainder, then it's odd. If it returns with without a remainder, then it's even, right? So that's how we can figure out if numbers are odd or even. Console.writeLine and modulus. Okay, so let's go ahead and run that and see what we get. All right, and it gives me a 1 for the remainder, which means that is an odd number. Perfect. Okay, modulus is great. Let's say we actually just want to increase a number by 1. All right, well, let's take that modulus number, number by 1. Let's take that modulus number and let's add a 1 to it. Now we could do modulus equals modulus plus 1, and that would actually work. Now, why didn't I just say modulus plus 1, right? Well, what happens is on these operations aren't exactly like math, right? I can't just say modulus plus 1 equals, because that's not how it works here. On the left side of the equal sign is the variable that we're changing, or the variable that we're accessing. On the right side of the equal sign is what we're doing to the variable. So we have to write it like this: modulus equals modulus plus 1. Well, there are other ways we can do that. We can say modulus plus equals 1, which basically cuts out this whole part of it and just says we're going to add to itself whatever's on this side. We can do that with minus and division and everything else. We can do that with all those as well. But there's an even easier way to increase by 1. We can say modulus plus plus. And what that'll do is it'll increase whatever that number is by 1. All right. So now at this point, we started at 1. So we've added 1 to it, so it should be 2. We've added another 1 to it, so it's going to be 3. Now we're adding another 1 to it, so it should be 4. So if all of this is working properly, then when I do my console.writeLine, I should get 4. Let's try that out and see what happens. Hey, there we go, 4. All right, so that's how you add numbers. We can also do the same with taking away numbers. Right? I can do modulus minus minus. And all those other ways of doing it up there work as well. Console dot write line modulus. So now that should be 3. My bottom number should be 3. And it is. Perfect. Okay, great. Now, there are some, let's see. We've already covered that, covered that, covered that. And we can actually add, we can add anything we want. We can say modulus equals modulus plus quotient. We can do, these operations can be numbers, actual numbers, or they can be variables if you want them to be variables. We can make them as complicated as we want. Let's talk about how to do something called absolute value. Raise your hand if you know what absolute value means. Did any of you raise your hand? I don't know because I can't see you. I'm sitting in an empty classroom over the summer talking to myself. But it'd be really funny if one of you shoots your hand up in class at this point in the video, and I come over and ask, hey, what do you need? And you're like, oh, nothing, you told me to in the video. And then I'm like, oh, okay. I'm probably going to be really confused. But anyway, so absolute value is essentially what is the positive version of this number. That's a very simple way of explaining it. We could take a negative number, and if we apply the absolute value to that negative number, then it turns it into a positive, right? So we could take any number and make sure we get the positive version of that number. So absolute value. And it's actually pretty easy to do. All we need to do is create a new variable, let's say negative, create a new variable called negative, and we'll make it a negative 23, whatever we want, right? Negative numbers, by the way, work with these integers. It's still a negative number, or it's still an integer, it's still a whole number. It just happens to be negative, right? And we can write that number to the screen. So let's console.writeLine, and we'll say negative. So we should get a negative 23 on our screen when we try this out, and we do, negative 23. Perfect. But we want the positive version of that number. So let's say int positive equals, and here we have to call a new method called math. We have to actually call in some math. And when we hit math period, we get a bunch of cool options, right? We get ABS, which is what we're going to use in a second. But we get A cosine, A sine, A tangent, tangent 2, big mul, ceiling, equals, floor, log 10, max, min, pow. These are all mathematical operations we can use. But for right now, we're going to use ABS because that stands for absolute value. And the absolute value of the negative number, right? So I'm going to tell it negative. I want the absolute value of this variable here. And then I'm going to put that on my screen. Console.writeLine, and it's going to be positive. Whatever the positive number is, this positive variable here. Let's give that a shot. So it should be negative 23 and then positive 23. And it is, so my absolute value worked. Perfect. Now, at this point, you could do all the math that you want to do essentially in an application. You can use this math to create a crazy calculator. Let's try a crazy number and see what happens. You know, float, because we don't know what it's going to be. Crazy equals sum plus difference. I'm basically just taking my variables from before. Minus product times the quotient, all those variables I've been using, divided by modulus times. Ooh, now we need to get into order of operations. Order of operations, if you remember from math class, is PEMDAS. Please excuse my dear Aunt Sally, right? PEMDAS, right? EMDAS. PEMDAS stands for parentheses, exponents, multiplication, division, addition, subtraction, right? And that actually works for these mathematical operations as well. Basically meaning it will do everything in PEMDAS order, or in order of operations. So if we put anything in parentheses, if we put an operation in parentheses, then it will actually put that in that exact order. So we'll do negative minus positive. All right. So now we have this long mathematical operation using variables here. We can actually see what that is. Let's do console dot write line crazy. All right, hit start. Okay, so the number we came up with that long operation was 381,056. Perfect. So with these skills, you could actually create a calculator. You can make a GPA calculator, regular just addition calculator, subtractions, multiplication. You can create calculators. You can do one for miles per gallon. You can do one for certain mathematical formulas that are complicated. You can create a cool calculator for people to use. And that's actually what you're going to do in this next project. You're going to come up with an idea for a cool calculator people might want to use, and you're going to create one using these concepts. All right, that's about it for this video. Again, we went through this kind of quickly, but it's all simple mathematical operations using variables and hard numbers. If you have any questions, please do not hesitate to let me know. And when you're done with your calculator project, turn it in the same way you did your last project. And if you forgot how to do that, refer to the video on turning in assignments. All right, that's it for me. I'm going to stop talking now so you can actually go do some cool math stuff. And I will see you next time.